Hello and welcome to the next episode of Two Girls Talk Transits. Today we're reviewing the astrology from December 15th through December 21st, and we're your hosts. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Kaleigh.
And welcome back. So we start off this week on that Sunday the 15th is a full moon in Gemini. So I'm going to share this if you are on YouTube or the video version. So we're looking at a full moon at 23 degrees of Gemini. It is kind of co-present with Jupiter, but further away. Jupiter's back over at 15 degrees of Gemini. Notable is that Mercury ruling this full moon is in Sagittarius at 6 degrees, stationing direct. So that's an interesting piece. But the real aspect that we're looking at with this full moon is the square to Neptune, who's at 27 degrees of Pisces. So that's sort of like the first aspect this full moon's really getting, which is like a douse of confusion and unclarity and maybe a bit of frustration with that. Gemini really likes clear facts and information and knowledge, and Neptune is the soup bowl or the toilet bowl of all that coming together. And so there is a bit of this full moon kind of hitting that square aspect of like frustration of maybe wanting more clarity but not receiving it.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say the exact same thing, something very similar that Gemini wants all that information and we might feel like, full moons are like culmination points, so we might be like seeking for that information in some way. And, having that square with Neptune, we're not able to access it like we would want to. So I think that's probably going to be the main theme of this full moon, just feeling like a little bit of lack of clarity. Um, yeah, which is not
Yeah.
not fun, but that's all right. I mean, there's
I think it's yeah, I think like you said, like I think it's a peak point of like, also the Mercury retrograde, like how Mercury stationing direct this day too. So maybe like a peak moment of like, was all the information I just received in the last 2 months like incorrect or correct? Like I don't know, like what is the truth? And it's like this truth seeking desire, which is also very Sagittarius, Sun and like Mercury and Sag. But the Neptune is just like, oh, you shall not know.
Yeah, at least at the start of it, you won't know. I mean, as Mercury like stations direct here, we're going to be moving, continue to move through Sagittarius. So maybe in some way we'll be, gathering information as that like Mercury moves forward, which will hopefully bring us some clarity. If full moons like were to symbolize like an ending and like a release of something, perhaps we could be like releasing that confusion.
Yeah, I think it would play out. I think we'll see it play out this week, while the sun completes the square. But yeah, I was thinking like, maybe this is a moment where you get like the peak realization of like what wasn't true, knowing that that wasn't clear, it wasn't true. And it's like, okay, I just got to let this go and just accept the fact that there's all this misinformation and mixed messages floating around at this time, knowing moving forward, there's a little more clarity to be understood because at least you know what isn't true, you know?
Yeah, that's very true. Or we could be releasing like that emotional need to like know what is,
Mm,
yeah, what is like clear or like, what am I trying to say? Like that emotional need to like have all the answers, like
right.
know exactly where we're going. We don't always actually need to know the path forward. Sometimes we just need to like take those baby steps to move forward. So, yeah, it could be like realizing, oh, I can release that like security blanket. Like it's okay for me to move forward with confusion.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good point where it's just like, you know what? I'm not gonna know what's
Mm.
gonna happen. I'm not gonna understand this. I don't know what the future holds. I don't have all the logic. I can't get all the facts, so I'm just gonna accept this
Yeah, well, I
kind
mean, like Sun in Sagittarius wants us to be, I think, like our ego awareness is like more faith-based, you know?
right.
Yeah, so it like wants us to be like not confused, but like, move forward with faith instead of with like 100% certainty. We don't have like I mean, besides Uranus and Taurus, that's our only like grounding force, which is not even grounding at all. So it's like we don't really have any like grounding elements right now. So we're
That
just
is
gonna,
such a good point. That
yeah.
is such a good point. There is no earth energy in the sky at all.
No, so we're
Oh,
just like kind of like our head is in the clouds a little bit. We got some air energy going on, and we got that fire element where like we want to move forward. So we just gotta like move forward with that like gust of wind of like ideas and inspirations that's bringing us, even though we lack the clarity.
yeah. I mean, we really aren't going to get any grounding energy until the very end of this week. So that's such a good point. Like,
Mhm.
kind of move with the energy and not try to force it or like make it manifest yet, like let it just kind of flow through you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I have noticed like recently, I mean, I don't know if it will continue for the next like week or two, like when this podcast airs, but I have noticed like there is like some kind of flow element going on. Like it just seems like, things are moving along. Earth energy, although stable, can feel stagnant. So when
Right.
we have like air and fire going on, it can feel like, things are progressively moving and like we can't even stop them if we wanted to.
That's a good point. Yeah. Earth energy, like, takes it and tries to manifest it concretely, which takes so much more time. So the air and fire are just getting you like flowing and creating and going at it. And
Yeah.
then when you actually need to ground it, then it's slower. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't, it's, this week is kind of interesting. I just feel like it's like this week of like a little bit of dissociating or like a little bit of like tapping out too. Like, on the 18th, which will be like that Wednesday. So you're playing out the full moon through the first part of the week. And then on Wednesday, the sun completes the square to Neptune. And that's just like that peak on
Mhm.
clarity, having to just give it to faith, like trust the universe energy, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I would 100% agree. I mean, the sun's in Sag, Neptune is in Pisces. It's very faith-based. Like you're just gonna have to like rely on your intuition and your inner knowing and just, pray for the best and move forward.
Yeah. And, it's always interesting. Like, I think it's interesting that, Sagittarius and Pisces square each other. Kind of like how Gemini and Virgo square each other, but they're both ruled by Jupiter. Sagittarius, Pisces, at least in Hellenistic astrology, both ruled by Jupiter, because it's like the two different sides of Jupiter's faith. Like the fire Sagittarius Jupiter is like, this is the belief and this is the truth, and I am right and I know it, and this is everything, every philosophy. This is how the world works. And then the Pisces side is this more empathetic,
Mhm.
like collective, like, well, there's different perspectives, there's differences, like other people have different experiences, and incorporating that. And so this may too be a day where you have to kind of let your dogma
Yeah.
fall, like, let those beliefs kind of, wait a minute, is this true for everyone, or is this really, am I being too like closed off from a collective experience?
Yeah, that's such a good point because I feel like the Pisces energy is like the both and or like it is inclusive of all information. Or
Mm-hmm.
like if I think about Sagittarius spiritual truth, sometimes it can be like if I reflect on the book like The Secret or something, that teaches like manifestation,
Right.
you should like, this is the laws of the universe and like this is what you do and like follow the laws and then you'll be good or whatever.
It's so sad. Yeah, for real. This is the truth. You manifest everything through your mind.
Yeah, like if you just follow this, then you'll be fine. But then like Pisces comes in and it's like, well, like based off of people's like current awareness and like generational stuff going on and like just like like just the
The
reality.
government, like other things outside of your control, the nature, like things that are not just purely you. Yeah.
Like let's consider other factors here and like let's look at the individual holistically and have some compassion. That's I think where that Jupiter like can come in, like you said, a bit more compassion for like the whole and totality of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So it can too, like around that Wednesday, around this full moon, can too be a day where some of your real strong truths fall or get dissolved by Neptune because you're like, yeah, like maybe this isn't actually accurate for everyone, or maybe I'm missing an empathetic piece of my beliefs. It can be that little bit of clarity of where you've been deluded.
Ooh, and it's really good, like Sun and Sag. It can even be like related to like how you even treat yourself. Like you can be
Mm,
like so dogmatic in your beliefs about like how you should be and how things should play out. And maybe it's like a time to invite more compassion to like, it's okay that I am where I am based off of like everything that I've been through. It could be like you just inviting more like understanding for yourself. Yeah.
that's a good point. That's a good point. Like, because your ego can get hurt with like the Sun square Neptune, but just also inviting that, hey, it's okay. You're also part of the collective too. Like, your experience is meant to happen as well. Like, you are meant to have these feelings too, because it's part of everything that's going on.
True. Yeah, it's gonna be definitely like a dissolving the ego point, like you
Mhm.
mentioned. Interesting.
Yeah. So that's like the full moon that really is the marker for this week. On Thursday, the 19th, we get Venus and Aquarius trining Jupiter. So this is that sweeter period now. That Thursday coming up to solstice, I think is relatively a good period of time. Venus and Jupiter, especially in air signs, are really going to want you to connect with relationships and people that you care about and things that are important to you and having fun with people and having fun with your community and sharing ideas and just that lighthearted air energy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we have a relationship between two air signs. Um,
Mm.
Both of them are very social, so I think just like we're gonna amp up some like social connection here, which I think will feel really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking too. Oh, the moon's in Leo that day on Thursday too, a little bit. So, like, you can just kind of be seen by your community or like be heard or like, sharing your truth or sharing your information and just having a little more fun in that
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sweeter. So I like that day for just, having more ease and flow. And then we do get to solstice, which is the start of winter. The sun enters Capricorn on Saturday, the 21st. So here we get a little bit of grounding energy.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like the sun in Capricorn?
I do personally because it's in my ninth house and I appreciate that. But I think
Yeah.
it'll be like a nice, like, we had all these ideas floating around in Sagittarius season. We had like, especially with Mercury moving retrograde, we had like some misinformation going on. And then I think when the sun moves into Capricorn, like our awareness is a little bit more grounded and our ideas like have the opportunity to like get a little bit more solidified into reality.
Yeah, and like looking at like the wheel of the year kind of theme too, like Capricorn is the seed. You plant the seed of like what you're gonna manifest through the next year. And so maybe it has been like everything up for the first half of this month with all the air and fire, whereas like generating all these ideas, and now the sun going to Capricorn, like what true one seed, you get one seed, like Capricorn is really big about like let's do one big initiative and start that, cardinal sign, like, okay, let's actually plant this. And now we're going to manifest this creative ideas that you've been brewing.
Yeah, I think it's so cool to see it like that because even if we think about like the progression of like the zodiac signs, so like if Capricorn were to be like the seed that we plant, then we move to Aquarius where it like, the ideas are flowing a little bit more. We're getting more creative with things and we're implementing some of our creative ideas. And then we move into Pisces where, there's this interesting like, have you ever seen that creativity graph? It's like It's like this
Oh.
graph and it shows like creative ideas and it's like we start off like really enthusiastic and then we end up like in the pits because we're like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if I believe that this thing can like continue to happen." So if it were to hit that point, that's where like Pisces season would come in where we need to be a little bit more like faith-based and like continue moving forward with faith instead of like
Mm,
concrete evidence that it's going to come through. And then it starts moving back up again, and we start like believing it's possible again. We get little like things like, oh,
that
this is actually,
Aries energy is
yeah.
like, yes, I know I was right. Like this is gonna be what the thing is, you know?
Yeah. So it's just interesting to think about like the evolution of like as we move through signs, like these different things can happen.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it is just definitely an energetic shift that Saturday too. The moon will be in Virgo and also opposite Saturn, who's ruling the sun in Capricorn now. So, Saturnian themes definitely come up with like your responsibilities or like what work is involved or like what things that you have to tackle that take time. Planting that seed is time, and planting that seed is like, going slow with time, letting it evolve that way. So it is a Saturn. You get a little bit of a Saturn, which can be sometimes a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, yeah, I could see how it could be a bummer. Like some of us, especially if we're like really fiery or like really have a lot of air, we have difficulty with that more Saturnian energy because it is slow. We don't want to like have that slow progression of things. We just like want to move forward. Um, yeah, but I think like we had Mercury retrograde. I think that was like asking us to like put some like details in place and like kind of get things organized. And that could be of benefit like when Capricorn season comes around because we're going to need that organization to support like our responsibilities.
Exactly. And that will help with like Saturn, and two, just noticing like long term, this will probably be later this month, but Saturn now direct is also moving back to that square with Jupiter. And that's kind of those when the outer planets connect is like these bigger long-term themes too. So like you could see December and Capricorn season being like the next step of like the Saturn progression through Pisces. Like if you've been working on these bigger projects or long-term things that are taking up a lot of your time, that would be that very Saturn Jupiter square. And now you're maybe moving into that next progression of that.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
like Saturn. I was looking at Saturn in my chart the other day and I was like, I cannot wait to get this like Saturn out of Pisces. I honestly think
Same.
it's been there for like 5 years, even though it hasn't. I'm like, why is it?
It's so long. And
Yeah.
it's so slow. Like Saturn is just truly the god of time and like how time shapes things. Like,
Yeah. It's so
and
interesting.
I think about like, like the rivers being made by the water, like the carves on the rock, like, like Saturn being the rock, Pisces being the flowing water, and just over time that water erodes the rock and like creates the structure, but it takes all this time. And Jupiter tends to want things faster and more freedom. And there's been this dynamic in your life where no, you just need to go slow. Let's pause for a moment and work through this, and then you get another idea and you got to work through that idea slower. I don't know, maybe it's like this parsing out of like what ideas will actually stick to.
Yeah, that's a really good because I think like Jupiter without confinement would just like go in every direction. You know, we need some kind of
Mhm.
like confinement there. And it would, sometimes if you have structures in place, it actually helps you grow further, you know?
Exactly, yeah, we all need containers to kind of control our growth in the right direction.
Right.
And so yeah, I just think that's sort of the feeling that we're getting. And maybe this like, and maybe that's what this really Mercury retrograde with Jupiter, those two, we've just been all this stuff, all these ideas, all these things happening. And then you get into Capricorn season, you're like, okay, pick one, and we're gonna grow that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. I think we could all use that. There's like it's like a really beautiful thing actually to have like clarity and decisiveness on like what you
Mhm.
want to grow. because in the space where you're like, I don't know, like I have so many ideas and I don't know like what I want to pour into, like that space can be really uncomfortable actually. So, having, Saturn come in there and be like, pick one thing, like you said, could be really
Mhm.
nice. Like moving forward, you could be like, all right, this one thing, like I'm gonna focus on growing that, for the year ahead. And I don't think we mentioned, but like as soon as Capricorn enters, or as soon as the sun enters Capricorn, this can be like a really good time to do like year ahead planning.
Mhm.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
really like getting concrete and clear about what goals you want to manifest in the next year. Capricorn loves to plan, like it loves to
Mm.
have future goals. So this would be like a really good time to do that, especially in the next couple weeks when we see Mercury move into Capricorn. But the sun there is going to be like having you beginning to think about those things.
Such a good point. I always start my year on December 21st. Like January 1st is just such an arbitrary date if you like think about it like astrologically. It's just such a random date. Like start your year either on solstice or the Chinese New Year even makes sense because it's like the first full moon in Aquarius kind of thing. Like, like or the new moon in Aquarius, like do something that makes more sense astrologically than like January 1st. I just never really got that.
Yeah, I get that. I like celebrating Chinese New Year. Unfortunately, I don't think my town is like progressive enough to have anything going, but I like celebrating.
Oh,
Yeah, like
you'd be surprised. There's smaller communities sometimes somewhere they just have to hide.
yeah, maybe there is. Like when I lived in Asheville, we had like this local apothecary did like a Chinese New Year celebration.
Mm,
They had like all the Chinese foods and stuff like that, and that was really cool.
yeah, like the Chinese New Year is really tuned into the lunar calendar, and there are there's Chinese astrology too, so like they have different practices, but it's tuned in at least to the lunar calendar, which like again makes sense, like
Wait, what is the next year? Is it the snake? Do you know even? I
I have not looked. I don't know.
Chinese New Year 2025. It's gonna be the snake, yeah.
It's a snake. Ooh, ooh.
You're
Okay. That's interesting. I always remember 2020s was the rat.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
your Chinese zodiac is a pig, right?
Yeah, mine's a pig. Um, I just remember 2020s was like the rat, and now we're going to the snake year. That's interesting because like the snake eats the rat.
Yeah, because I think like 2020, people were saying like Chinese zodiac, they were saying like rat years are big for like disease outbreaks.
Yep,
So I think that was like super interesting. But yeah, I haven't really read much on the snake year, but I'm
I
interested to,
haven't either.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about it maybe when we do like the Chinese New Year kind of pie. Um, but yeah, this is it for this week. Next week is gonna be a little more intense. So just have some fun this week and kind of go slower, iron out your directions and the Neptune component, just let the information flow.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Right, well, that's all we have for this week. As we mentioned in our previous podcast, there's a little bit more lengthy explanation, but our program, we're accepting applications. We're starting January 19th, which is Aquarius season, which is great for gathering community. It's a 6-month kind of classroom, 10 people setting, live online, learn astrology with both Kaleigh and I, and also learn the therapeutic aspects of astrology and how you can work within your own cycles. But then we're also prepping you to give you started to do readings or to even move into predictive astrology. So really, really excited to get the community together for that. All that information is linked in this show notes and then also on our socials. So you can check us out at Two Girls Talk Transits on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube.
Yep. That's it for now. Yeah.
All right, we'll see y'all next week.
See you.
Bye.